The governor's doing a very good job. He's having a hard time getting the president on the phone. I guess they're not being responsive. The federal government is not being responsive, but they're having a very hard time getting the president on the phone. He won't get on, and of course the vice president, she's out someplace campaigning, looking for money. So they have to be focused over here. It's too big. This is a really bad one. And the governor's doing a good job, but he's having a hard time getting the president on the phone.
Breaking news, Guinness World Record completely shattered. An incompetent Florida man has just broken the record for the most lies told in a single lifetime in human history. The pathological liar has reportedly told approximately 1.682 sextillion lies during his life. Scientists are truly blown away and don't even know how this is humanly plausible for a figure to be this dissociated from the truth. And that number has probably already went up by a monumental amount as we speak right now. It's reported that the man tells a mistruth 187 times for every single breath he inhales. So, I was just recently made aware of the Trump supporters and Donald Trump's latest debacle, where they are actually blaming President Biden for a lack of response to Hurricane Helene, but not putting the blame on the governors of the southeast states affected. All Republicans, by the way, which are the ones who are actually in charge of deploying the National Guard and coordinating emergency services. Also, President Joe Biden, because he is compassionate, virtuous, and a caring man, has declared a national emergency actually days before the hurricane even began, so funding in FEMA could be claimed and released. Even the Republican governor of the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp, has commended President Biden's effort to issue an overwhelming recovery response and is putting the safety of the citizens of this country over politics.
The president just called me yesterday afternoon. I missed him and called him right back. And he just said, hey, what do you need? And I told him, we got what we need. We'll work through the federal process. He offered that if there's other things we need, just to call him directly.
He says he submitted an expedited emergency declaration to be approved by FEMA.
They have acknowledged receipt of that, and I'm sure that they'll take care of that very quickly.
Also, can we just take a step back real quick and reminisce the Trump's response to hurricanes when he was president?
This is a tough hurricane. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water, and it certainly is not good.
Donald Trump, who was the then president of the United States, suggested that military personnel should literally drop a nuke in the middle of hurricanes to prevent them from hitting America's coastline. And no, this is not a joke, unfortunately.
According to a new report from Axios, President Trump has been very interested in a brilliant plan to stop hurricanes. Drop a nuclear bomb on them. Trump has reportedly made that suggestion multiple times to senior Homeland and National Security officials, paraphrased by a source who was in the room for one briefing as saying, quote, I got it. Why don't we nuke them? They start forming off the coast of Africa as they're moving across the Atlantic. We drop a bomb inside the eye of the hurricane and it disrupts it. Why can't we do that? The source added the person briefing the president on hurricanes was knocked back on his heels. People were astonished. After the meeting ended, we thought, what the F? What do we do with this?
What about that time when he blamed Hurricane Maria on Puerto Rico? Oh, and that one time he threw paper towels to a crowd of hurricane survivors. I mean, the guy's a joke. There wasn't a single point in the timeline of American history that we weren't being laughed at and ridiculed more than when Donald Trump was president. Also, one more very important thing. Project 2025, Donald Trump's hellish manifesto designed specifically for a second Trump term, would leave millions left in the dark to flounder and perish, and they would be left abandoned with no help from the federal government. His plan promises to eliminate vital agencies that Americans rely on for a recovery to hurricanes. Donald Trump's Project 2025 would cut FEMA, eradicate the National Weather Service, it would eradicate the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, it would eradicate federal-backed flood insurance, and it would eradicate emergency disaster funding for state and local governments. Just think about that. If something like this happens in less than a year from now, During a second Trump presidency, that could mean millions are left behind while Donald Trump funnels more tax breaks to the richest 1% of Americans. This is just a small glimpse of what we've already seen in his first term, but he is doubling down on everything, intensifying his nightmarish plans for if he returns to the White House. But there is good news. We can still make sure that that never happens and elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on November 5th.